Developing an introduction to a sermon or a talk is a really difficult thing to do. I mean, where do you start? Where do you begin when you're trying to talk to somebody about something or tell somebody about something special that's happened? I imagine that that's probably what it was like when Matthew wrote his gospel. I mean, he probably sat down and he's sitting here thinking about the audience that he's going to be writing to. He's going to be writing to this Jewish church, but they're now converted to Christian, and he's like, where do I start? Where do I start? Well, to answer that question, let's, dig a little bit deeper into the text. The genealogies have to be among the most skipped texts in the Bible. I mean, think about it. We read in Matthew chapter 1, Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, Judah the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar, on and on and on. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, the genealogies are hard to pronounce. We don't necessarily know what all the names are. Maybe we should just cut them out of the Bible. Maybe they should be taken out completely. Before we do that, let's look a little bit at our own story and figure out if our own story can kind of help us understand this at all. I mean, think about it. If someone asked you about your story of your life, if they were asking where you were born or all those sorts of things, you're not just going to say, well, I was born in Novato County Hospital in 1985. I mean, that's not a lot of detail. You probably talk about the events that are surrounding it and everything. I mean, your story is so much bigger. There's so much more going on. I mean, think about it. If you were to talk about your family and your family's history, you could include stories about your ancestors that first came to America. You could start talking about maybe a family business. You could talk about life decisions and things that have happened that have greatly affected your family and affected the way that your whole family kind of gets together and does all of those things. In the same way, the genealogies of Jesus, they aren't just names, they're stories. They represent a bigger thing that's going on. Where is... perfect. Thank you. Excellent. So, they're not just names, they're stories that represent something bigger in the story of Jesus and the story of Christmas that's going on. I mean, it's not like Jesus just randomly showed up one day. God just randomly showed up in the flesh. These are centuries and centuries of stories of people that have all led up to the birth of our Savior, God coming in the flesh. Anyways, this Christmas season, don't skip the genealogies. Instead, what I recommend, go to BibleGateway.com, go to Bible.org, click on these names that maybe you can't pronounce, maybe you can, and go into the Old Testament. Check out some of the stories of these people from verses 2 through 10, and just look at all these people that have lived throughout the Old Testament, and maybe you'll learn a little bit more about the story that led up to our coming Savior being born. Merry Christmas.